The sun hangs low over the Nahanni Valley, casting long shadows through the towering pines and painting the jagged peaks in hues of gold and crimson. A band of men, hardened prospectors, a skeptical journalist, and a reluctant Indigenous guide, trudge forward, their boots sinking into the damp earth as they follow the winding path along the riverbank. The air is thick with the scent of pine and damp moss, and the distant rush of the Nahanni River echoes like a whispered warning. They've come lured by rumors, whispers of gold hidden deep in these mountains, of veins so rich a man could retire after a single season. But there are darker stories too, tales told in hushed tones around campfires of men who entered this valley and never returned, or worse, were found headless, their bodies arranged like grotesque offerings to some unseen force. The leader of the group, a grizzled prospector named Harlan, scoffs at the superstitions. "Headless men?" he grunts, adjusting his pack. "More like headless fools who got lost and froze to death, or ran into a grizzly." The others chuckle, but the laughter is uneasy. Only the guide, a Dean man named Thomas, remains silent, his eyes scanning the tree line as if expecting something to emerge from the shadows. As they make camp that first night, Thomas kneels by the fire, stirring the flames with a stick. "This place has a name in my people's tongue," he says quietly. "It means the land where spirits walk. The Naha tribe lived here once, then they vanished." One of the younger men, a wide-eyed drifter named Charlie, leans in. "You believe that stuff?" Thomas doesn't answer right away. He tosses a handful of tobacco into the fire, an old offering. "I believe that some places are not meant to be disturbed." Harlan rolls his eyes. "Save the ghost stories for when we're rich." But as the fire crackles and the wind moans through the trees like a morning cry, even the skeptics feel it, the weight of the valley pressing down on them, the sensation of being watched. Somewhere in the distance, an owl shrieks, and for a moment, the shadows at the edge of the firelight seem to shift. No one sleeps well that night. The second night in the valley is colder than the first. A thin mist creeps along the ground, swirling around the men's boots as they huddle near the fire, their breath visible in the frigid air. The trees loom like silent sentinels, their branches twisting into clawed fingers against the starless sky. Charlie, the youngest of the group, is the first to hear it, a sound like whispering, just beyond the ring of firelight. Not the wind, not an animal. Words. He stiffens, his hand drifting toward his rifle. "You hear that?" he mutters. Harlan scowls. "Hear what?" Then it comes again, a murmur, low and guttural, like a voice speaking in a language none of them recognize. The journalist, a wiry man named Dalton, lets out a nervous laugh. "Probably just the river," but his fingers tremble as he lights a cigarette. Thomas stands abruptly, his dark eyes scanning the blackness beyond the camp. He says nothing, but the tension in his shoulders is answer enough. Something is out there. Then, a snap, a branch breaking underfoot. Too close. Harlan grabs his rifle and swings the barrel toward the trees. "Who's there?" he barks. No answer, only the oppressive silence of the valley pressing in. The men sit rigid, ears straining. Minutes crawl by. Nothing. Finally, Harlan lowers his gun. "Probably a damn wolf," but his voice lacks its usual bluster. Morning reveals the unsettling truth. At dawn, the camp is intact, but something is wrong. The air carries a faint, rotten stench, like sulfur and spoiled meat. Dalton gags as he steps outside his tent. What the hell is that? Thomas kneels near the edge of the clearing, running his fingers over deep grooves in the earth. Not animal tracks. Something else. 3 long lines, as if claws had dragged through the dirt. And beside them, a tuft of dark hair, coarse and bristling, unlike any creature he knows. Then Charlie lets out a strangled cry. Carved into the bark of a nearby pine are symbols, crude, jagged marks that look like no writing any of them have seen. Thomas goes pale. "We should leave, now." Harlan scoffs. "We're not turning back because of some scratches on a tree." But Dalton isn't so sure. He leans in, squinting. The symbols seem to pulse under his gaze, the lines twisting like living things. A headache spikes behind his eyes. He staggers back, clutching his temples. Thomas grips his arm. "Don't look at them." The guide's warning. As the others pack up, Thomas pulls Harlan aside. His voice is low, urgent. "This is not an animal, not a man. The Naha people spoke of things that walk these woods, things that were here before us. They take heads, not for trophies, for power." Harlan's jaw tightens. "You expect me to believe in monsters?" Thomas doesn't blink. "I expect you to believe in death." For the first time, Harlan hesitates. Then he shakes his head. "We keep moving. One more day. If we don't find gold by then, we'll turn back." But the valley has other plans. That night, the whispers return, and this time, they're closer. The third morning dawns gray and heavy, the mist clinging to the valley like a burial shroud. The men break camp in silence, their breath coming in short, nervous puffs. No one speaks of the whispers from the night before. No one mentions the symbols. But their hands linger near their weapons, and their eyes dart toward the trees too often. They follow the river deeper into the valley, the water rushing black and swift over jagged rocks. The air grows thicker, warmer, unnaturally so. A sulphurous stench clings to everything, making their eyes water. Then, Charlie stops dead in his tracks. At first, it looks like a pale stone jutting from the mud near the riverbank. But as he steps closer, his stomach lurches. A human rib cage. The bones are bleached white, half buried in the silt. And just beyond it, another, and another. Harlan kicks at the dirt, revealing a skull, or what's left of one. The top has been sheared clean off, the edges jagged, as if torn apart by something impossibly strong. Dalton stumbles back, retching. "Jesus Christ!" Thomas kneels, running a finger along the bone. His face is grim. No animal did this. The clearing of the dead. Pushing through a tangle of undergrowth, they find it. A small clearing where the trees thin and the ground is littered with bones. Dozens of them. All human. All headless. Some are ancient, weathered by decades of wind and rain. Others are fresher, scraps of rotted clothing still clinging to the remains. One corpse, a recent one, sits propped against a tree, its spine straight, its arms arranged neatly across its lap. As if it had been placed there, the head is gone. Harlan's bravado finally cracks. "What the hell kind of place is this?" Dalton, ever the journalist, forces himself to examine the scene. He notes the lack of bloodstains, the absence of scavenger marks. These men weren't just killed, they were prepared. Then he sees the markings. Carved into the tree above the headless corpse are the same symbols from camp. But these are older, deeper, the wood scarred as if by ritual repetition. Thomas exhales sharply. We need to leave, now. The first death. They don't make it far. As they retreat toward the river, a scream splits the air, raw, guttural, cut off too soon. They spin, rifles raised. Charlie is gone. No struggle, no sound of footsteps. Just gone. Then, from the trees ahead, a wet thud. They find him 50 yards away, his body slumped against a rock. His head is missing, his hands are curled into claws, frozen in a final, desperate grip. And his blood is still warm. The remaining men don't speak as they drag Charlie's headless corpse back to camp. The weight of his body is nothing compared to the crushing silence between them. No one dares to say what they're all thinking. It took him in broad daylight, without a sound. Harlan's hands shake as he checks his rifle for the 5th time. Dalton scribbles frantic notes in his journal, as if documenting the horror might somehow make sense of it. Thomas stands at the edge of the firelight, staring into the trees, his knife glinting in the flickering orange glow. Night falls like a guillotine. The watcher's in the dark. The first sign comes just after midnight, a rustling in the bushes, too deliberate to be the wind. Then a low, guttural clicking, like bone tapping against bone. Dalton sits bolt upright in his tent, his heart hammering. He fumbles for his revolver. Outside, the fire has burned down to embers. The shadows stretch long and crooked, shifting in ways that shouldn't be possible. Then, a breath, right against the back of his tent. Something is sniffing at the canvas. He doesn't move, doesn't breathe. The sniffing stops. A long silence. Then, RIPE! Claws tear through the tent fabric, inches from his face. Dalton screams, firing blindly into the dark. The gunshot shatters the night. Harlan and Thomas burst from their tents, rifles raised. There's nothing there, only the shredded remains of Dalton's shelter and, just beyond the tree line, the faint sound of laughter. The second death. They don't sleep. They sit back to back around the fire, weapons in hand, watching the darkness. An hour before dawn, Thomas stiffens. Do you hear that? At first, there's nothing. Then, drip, drip, drip. Blood, falling from the branches above. Harlan looks up and chokes on his own breath. Dalton's body is wedged in the crook of a tree, 20 feet above them. His head is gone. His arms dangle, swaying gently in the wind. Fresh blood patters onto the dirt like rain. No one had heard a struggle. No one had seen anything. Yet there he is. Harlan staggers back, bile rising in his throat. We're leaving. Now. Thomas doesn't argue. The chase begins. They abandon everything. Tents, supplies, even the gold samples they'd collected. They run, stumbling through the undergrowth, their breath ragged. But the valley doesn't let go so easily. Behind them, branches snap. Something big is moving through the trees, keeping pace. Then the whispers start again. Voices overlapping, some human, some not. Stay. You belong here now. We're hungry. Harlan fires blindly into the dark. The shot echoes, then fades. Silence. Then, a hand grabs his ankle. He looks down. A face stares up from the earth, half-rotted, grinning, its hollow eyes boring into his. The ground itself seems to be holding him. He screams, kicking free, and staggers back, right into Thomas. The guide's face is ashen. We can't outrun them. Harlan's voice cracks. Then what do we do? Thomas tightens his grip on his knife. We fight. But in the shadows around them, shapes begin to move, tall, gaunt, and hungry. The last embers of the fire die as Harlan and Thomas stand back to back, their weapons trembling in their hands. The forest around them has gone unnaturally silent. No wind, no animals, just the slow, rhythmic drip of Dalton's blood from the branches above. Then, the shadows begin to move. Tall figures emerge from the trees, not quite men, not quite beasts. Their limbs are too long, their movements too fluid, like smoke given form. Their faces are obscured by darkness, but Harlan catches glimpses of sunken eyes and jagged, grinning teeth. One steps forward. Its voice is a wet rasp, like a corpse forcing air through rotting lungs. You should not have come. Harlan fires. The bullet punches through the creature's chest, but it doesn't flinch. It laughs, a sound like breaking bones, and keeps advancing. Thomas mutters a prayer in his native tongue and slashes with his knife. The blade connects, slicing deep into the thing's arm. Black ooze bubbles from the wound, hissing like acid as it hits the ground. The creature snarls but doesn't stop. They're surrounded. Harlan's rifle clicks empty. He swings it like a club, cracking it against a creature's skull. The thing staggers, then lunges, its clawed fingers wrapping around his throat. He gasps, kicking wildly as the creature lifts him off the ground. Its breath smells of decay and old blood. "You will join the others," it whispers. Then, pain, a flash of steel. Thomas's knife buries itself in the creature's eye. It howls, dropping Harlan, who collapses to the dirt, gagging. Thomas yanks him up. "Run!" They sprint through the trees, branches whipping at their faces. Behind them, the creatures give chase, their laughter echoing through the valley. Harlan's lungs burn. His vision blurs. He doesn't know where they're going, just away. Then Thomas skids to a halt. Ahead, the river rages, swollen and violent. No way across. The creatures emerge from the trees, circling them like wolves. Thomas turns to Harlan, his face grim. "You have to jump." Harlan stares at the churning water. "Are you insane? We'll drown." Thomas shakes his head. The river is the only way out. It's the only thing they fear. Harlan hesitates. "What about you?" Thomas grips his knife. "I'll hold them off." The creatures step closer. Harlan's voice breaks. "You'll die." Thomas smiles, just slightly. "Better me than both of us." Then he shoves Harlan backward, into the river. The icy water swallows Harlan whole. The last thing he sees before the current drags him under is Thomas charging the creatures, his knife raised, his war cry lost in the roar of the water. Harlan doesn't remember surfacing, doesn't remember crawling onto the riverbank miles downstream. When he wakes, the sun is high, the valley silent. He stumbles forward, half dead, until he finds a trapper's cabin. The man inside takes one look at Harlan's hollow eyes and bloodied clothes and doesn't ask questions. Weeks later, a search party returns to the valley. They find the abandoned camp, the headless bodies. Of Thomas, there is no sign, but carved into a tree near the river in crude, hurried letters is a single word: run. The trapper's cabin was never meant to be a refuge, just a way station for hunters brave or foolish enough to venture near the Nahanni's edge. When the door burst open that dawn and Harlan collapsed inside, the old man inside didn't ask questions. He'd seen that hollow stare before. Men came back from the valley broken, if they came back at all. The survivor's curse. For 3 days, Harlan didn't speak. He sat by the fire, flinching at every creak of the cabin walls, his fingers tracing the raw scar around his throat where the creature had gripped him. When he finally spoke, his voice was a ruined thing. "They're still there." The trapper poured him whiskey. Harlan drank it like water. A week later, when the Mounties arrived, Harlan told them everything. The gold, the whispers, the headless bodies, Thomas's sacrifice. They wrote it down. They didn't believe him. The search party. They went into the valley anyway. 6 armed men with pack horses and a photographer from the Edmonton Journal. They found the camp just as Harlan described. Tents shredded, supplies abandoned, the ground littered with spent shell casings, and the bodies. Dalton's headless corpse was still wedged in the tree, now picked clean by ravens. Charlie's remains lay where they'd left him, his fingers forever curled into the dirt. But Thomas? Gone. No blood, no bones, just his knife, plunged deep into the trunk of a pine, and around it those same cursed symbols, now bleeding a thick black sap that stank of rotting meat. The photographer snapped a picture. When the plate developed back in town, the image showed more than just the knife. A shadow stood beside it, tall, gaunt, smiling, the journalist's legacy. Dalton's notebook survived. The last entry, scribbled in frantic, shaking script, read, "They don't just take the heads, they wear them." I saw Charlie's face in the trees last night, stretched over something that wasn't human. It was smiling. The newspaper printed the story. Then they burned the notebook. Harlan's end. He never went back, but the valley didn't let go. At night he heard the whispers through his bedroom window. In mirrors, he caught glimpses of things standing just behind him, tall shapes with too many teeth. On the 1-year anniversary of Thomas's disappearance, Harlan's landlady found his room empty. The window was open, leading into his apartment, a trail of muddy footprints. Leading out. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.